Dear students, welcome to this video class. In this video class, we are discussing about a chapter from class 10 science, that is life processes. In this video, we are exactly concentrating on the three types of respiration, that is aerobic type of respiration, anaerobic type of respiration, and lack of oxygen type of respiration. Also, we are going to discuss how energy is produced in our body, that is this point. Later, where exactly energy is produced in our body. Also, why fishes respire so vigorously. So these are the important points we are going to discuss in this video. Dear students, let's understand about what is meaning of respiration, or how can we define the term respiration. The answer is respiration is a biological process in which food is oxidized. Food is oxidized. So important word is food is oxidized and produces energy. So this is the very important. That means the food in the form of the glucose is oxidizes to produce the energy. So exactly this process takes place in mitochondria. Here is a small representation. That means the food in the form of the glucose. So this is the glucose. So this glucose you generally combines with the oxygen in many times and produces the energy. So here is a chemical reaction, that is this is the glucose, nothing but the food. This is the simplest form of the food, that's called C6H12O6. So this glucose molecule combines with the oxygen to liberate the carbon dioxide, water, and very important ATP. This is nothing but energy. The ATP means adenosine triphosphate, which is called as currency of the energy of the living things. So totally the oxidation of the food to produce the energy is called respiration. So in this slide, students, we are going to discuss about the three types of respiration. The first one is aerobic type of respiration. So now the question comes, what is meaning of aerobic type of respiration? This answer is very simple. This is a type of respiration in which food is oxidized. Here food means glucose, oxidized in the presence of oxygen. Dear students, so this is the very important, in the presence of oxygen. That means the glucose molecule combines with the oxygen to liberate the energy in the form of the ATP. Dear students, in the aerobic type of respiration, here along with energy, carbon dioxide and water are liberated. Especially in this aerobic type of respiration, we are getting the more amount of energy. Usually in all multicellular organisms, this type of, that means aerobic type of respiration. Theoretically, it was told that there are 38 ATP molecules liberated at each breakdown of the glucose molecule. Here is a representation for you. That means here the glucose first breaks into the two molecules of the pyruvate. The glucose contains the 6 carbon atoms. So this molecule breaks into the pyruvate molecule. Here each pyruvate molecule contains the 3 carbon atoms. So this process takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. So this process is called as the glycolysis. What is meaning of glycolysis? That means the breaking down of glucose molecule into the pyruvate molecules is called as glycolysis. This process exactly takes place in the cytoplasm. Now what happens? This pyruvate molecule, after entering into the mitochondria, so what happens? There is a oxidation of the pyruvate molecule taking place, liberating the carbon dioxide, water, and finally energy in the form of the ATP. So totally here the food is oxidized in the presence of the oxygen. So here is a small explanation, more information about aerobic type of respiration. Dear students, exactly how energy is produced in the mitochondria, let's discuss. The first point is the blood containing the glucose and oxygen reaches the cell. See here, this is the diagram of the cell. So this is the cell. So into the cell, what is happening? The blood is enters into the cell. The blood contains the glucose and the oxygen. Now, this glucose molecule enters into the cell through the plasma membrane and it reaches into the cytoplasm. So, this is a fluid content which is called as the cytoplasm. What exactly happens here? The glucose molecule which is breaks into the pyruvate. You can notice here pyruvate molecule. That means the glucose breaks down into the pyruvate. This process is called as glycolysis. Exactly, the pyruvate is formed in the cytoplasm of the cell. Now what happens? This pyruvate molecule enters into the mitochondria. As the pyruvate molecule enters into the mitochondria, so in the mitochondria what happens? With the initiation of the heat energy, what happens? So this pyruvate molecule oxidizes, that means combines with the oxygen to produce the energy in the form of the ATP. You can notice here there are so many ATP molecules are produced in the mitochondria. That's why this mitochondria is called as the powerhouse of the cell. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the aerobic type of respiration. Dear students, in this slide we are going to discuss about anaerobic type of respiration, which is another type of respiration. So first let's define what is the meaning of anaerobic type of respiration. The answer is this is a type of respiration in which food is oxidized, very important, in the absence of the oxygen. That means the glucose molecule oxidizes without oxygen to produce the energy, ethanol or the ethyl alcohol, and the carbon dioxide. So in which organisms this type of respiration takes place? Examples, in some bacteria and in some members of the fungi, especially in the yeast, we can notice the anaerobic type of respiration. So in this anaerobic type of respiration, what happens? The amount released is very less. It is theoretically told that only 2 ATP of energy is liberated in the anaerobic type of respiration. Dear students, this anaerobic type of respiration is commonly called as the fermentation. So here is a small representation for you. That means the food molecule in the form of the glucose. So this is oxidizes again, which is converts into the pyruvate. That means in the process of the glycolysis, again what happens? This pyruvate oxidizes into the energy, carbon dioxide, and the ethanol. So in this way, in the anaerobic type of respiration, in the absence of oxygen, the energy is released. Here, the amount released is very less. Usually, this type of respiration taking place in primitive organisms. So, the another type of respiration, that is lack of oxygen respiration. That means lack of oxygen respiration. Here, lack means shortage of oxygen. So, let's come to the first point. In this type of respiration, food is oxidized in the lack. Lack means shortage of oxygen to produce the energy, and very important, that is it produces the lactic acid. That means in the lack of oxygen respiration, the products liberated are one is energy and the lactic acid. So usually here less amount of ATP or energy is released. So in this the next point is, say, as in this process lactic acid is liberated, what happens? This lactic acid stores in the muscles, which causes the pain. It is simply called as the cramps, muscle cramps. As the lactic acid deposit in the tissues, which causes the pain in the muscles. So this is very common in the people who are engaging in more physical work. That means the people who are doing the more physical work, like the players of the football, hockey, athletes, and even some laborers. So what happens as they need more amount of energy, there is a because of shortage of oxygen, what happens? The food is that means the glucose is incompletely oxidizes because of the shortage of oxygen. So in this reaction, what happens? The lactic acid is produced. This lactic acid causes the muscle cramps. So how can you overcome this muscle cramp? By taking the rest. By taking the rest or by having the hot bath, we can overcome the muscle cramps which is caused by the lack of oxygen respiration. So here is a small representation for you. Again, the glucose molecule converts into the pyruvate. In the lack of oxygen, what happens? The pyruvate liberates the lactic acid and the energy which is in the form of the ATP. So dear students, you can notice here. Here is a player who is having a muscle cramps. He is suffering a lot of pain. So in this image, we can notice here is a cramp causing the pain. So here what happens? The glucose first converts into the pyruvate molecule, liberating some amount of energy. So what happens? This pyruvate molecule, in the absence of oxygen, what is happening? Lactic acid is produced. So this lactic acid causes the muscle cramps. So dear students, in the class 10 science textbook, you are having this diagram. That means the heading is breaking down of glucose by various pathways. Here, see the glucose converting into the pyruvate molecule in the cytoplasm. So this pyruvate is what is happening in the absence of oxygen, produces the ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. In the lack of oxygen, which produces the lactic acid and the energy. In the presence of oxygen, it produces the carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So this is the aerobic type of respiration. This is the anaerobic type of respiration, and this is the lack of oxygen respiration. For the examination point of view, you have to concentrate more on this diagram. Again, students, we have a small doubt. That is, why breathing rate in aquatic animals, example fishes, is more? Why the aquatic animals vigorously respire? The answer is simple, because the dissolved oxygen in water is very, very less. This is very important. So in atmosphere, what happens? In the air, in the atmosphere, we are having almost 21% of oxygen, but in water, what happens? The amount of oxygen is very, very less. So to get the more amount of oxygen, aquatic animals, they respire vigorously. Thus, the breathing rate is more in the aquatic animals. So these are the students' important points that we have discussed in this video. Thank you for watching this video.